Welcome, shalom, salam, and dobrodošli to the Sarajevo Haggadah program. My name is Vahira Špijodić, and I am the Director of Community Relations at the Congress of Bosniaks of North America. I'm honored to open today's program, a program that has been a few weeks in the making. This program is the result of a wonderful partnership between the Jewish community in Bosnia and Herzegovina of the World Jewish Congress, the Congress of Bosniaks of North America, the Consulate General of Bosnia and Herzegovina in Chicago, and the Permanent Mission of Bosnia and Herzegovina to the United Nations. As this program takes place a few days before Passover, I would like to take this opportunity to wish Happy Pesach to all viewers from the Jewish communities around the world that are with us today. I would also like to extend my greetings to the members of our Bosnian, Herzegovinian, and Bosniak viewers from North America and Europe. Dobrodošli na današnji program. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Eldin Kajević, the President of Congress of Bosniaks of North America, to share his welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Vahida. And I would like to join you in extending my deepest appreciation to today's panelists and partners. His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Sven Alkalai from the Permanent Mission of Bosnia and Herzegovina to the United Nations, the Honorable Consul General Elvir Resic from the Consulate General of Bosnia and Herzegovina in Chicago, Dr. Sonat Birneker-Hart, President of the Jewish Diplomatic Corps, Mr. Ernest Herzog, Executive Director of Operations and Representative in the Balkans from the World Jewish Congress, and to Mr. Igor Kozhemyakin, Chazan of Sarajevo Synagogue from the Jewish community of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you all for your partnership over the past few weeks. And to all our viewers from the Jewish communities around the world who will be observing Passover in the next few days, I wish you a happy Pesach. The Sarajevo Haggadah is a story of common life and exile, but it is also a story of human compassion, devotion, and a story that reveals the best in humanity and our ability to protect each other even in the most difficult of times. So when Dervish Korkut, the curator at the Historical Museum of Bosnia and Herzegovina, risked his life and saved Haggadah from Nazis during the World War II in Sarajevo, he and his wife, Servet, also saved the Jewish girl, Mira Papo, and hid her identity, which is why they were both proclaimed the righteous among nations by Yad Vashem in 1999. But in the twist of fate, some 50 years later, Mira Papo's own son would help save Dervish and Servet's daughter when she became a refugee, when her own life was threatened in 1990s. It is stories like these that show true symbolism of Sarajevo Haggadah. And despite of many attempts to destroy it, twice in the past century in Sarajevo in 1940s and 1990s, Sarajevo Haggadah survived. It was saved by good people, but it also helped save others, as if it had remembered those who saved it and had its own way of saying thank you. So thank you all. Shalom, salam, and chwala.
Thank you, President Kajević, for your remarks. Now, I would like to invite the Honorable Elvir Resic, Consul General of Bosnia and Herzegovina in Chicago, to share his message with us today.
Dear participants, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, good morning or good afternoon. I'm really grateful to the Congress of North American Bosniaks especially to Mr. Eldin Kajević, for the invitation to participate, and I'm honored that Consulate General of Bosnia and Herzegovina is a part of this great gathering. I'm sure that events like these are of the great importance for all of us, particularly because two organizations, two congresses, the Jewish and the Bosniak, are doing it together. I don't intend to use too much time, but I'm going to use this opportunity, although maybe some of other participants will do the same, to pay homage to Bosnian Jewish American musician, Flori Jagoda. I was surprised how many Bosnians here in America know about her and her work, who passed away about 2 months ago. She was the great artist who connected traditions and cultures, preserved her Jewish and Bosnian cultural identity through songs, and probably was the symbol of a real multiculturalism. Although she was exceptional and extraordinary person, I would say that we all need more people like she was, and we all could learn from her life. In the end, I want to, of course, wish Happy Pesach to those who celebrate all over the world, and I wish you good luck and fruitful work to all participants today. I'm really honored to be part of this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Consul General, for your remarks. I would now like to invite His Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Sen Alkalay, from the Permanent Mission of Bosnia and Herzegovina to the United Nations, to share his remarks.
Thank you, Vahida, for this introduction. It's my great pleasure, and I would like at the outset to congratulate and greet the organizer of this event, World Jewish Congress and Congress of Bosniaks of North America, and welcome all the participants for bringing Sarajevo Haggadah closer to the wider population. Sarajevo Haggadah is a story and history of Sephardic Jews in Europe, and above all, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is a witness to history, survival, and many turbulent moments. Its story and exceptional journey is testimony of survival of Bosnia and Herzegovina throughout history. It represents the multi-ethnic fiber of Sarajevo and Bosnia and Herzegovina, where Jews live together with their neighbors, Muslims, Catholics, and Orthodox Christians. I repeat, together and not side by side. That proves to be right during the difficult times of siege of Sarajevo in 1992 to 1995. During this siege of Sarajevo, Jewish community doors were open to all citizens of Sarajevo for food, medication, mail, regardless of their religion or ethnicity. One anecdote best represents the intertwining, drawing the analogy of the baking of the bread. To bake a bread, you need three main ingredients: flour, water, and yeast, which can be compared to three major ethnic groups in Bosnia. But this bread, in order to be tasty, you must add salt. The Jews represent that salt, small in numbers, but they bring an outsized flavor to the society as a whole. Before Second World War, Jews in Sarajevo represented 14% of total population. Sarajevo was called Chico Jerusalem, small Jerusalem, because only 300 meters apart are four houses of worship: Catholic Cathedral, Muslim Mosque, Orthodox Church, and Jewish synagogue, and standing there for centuries. As we are talking about Sarajevo Haggadah today, I would like to share one episode during my tenure as ambassador of Bosnia and Herzegovina to the United States. Chicago Tribune published an article in December 1994 about mysterious disappearance of Sarajevo Haggadah, wondering about was it destroyed by the Bosnian Serb shelling, or faded by dust of proper care, or sold on a black market to raise money for Bosnian army? Beginning of April 1995, I visited Chicago and had a meeting with the editorial board of the Chicago Tribune. And I told them that that article prompted a deluge of calls from concerned art historians, diplomats, leading museums, as well as the leaders of a Jewish community, and even mayor of New York, Ed Koch. And the Passover, that miracle happened. As it is tradition in a multicultural gem as Sarajevo, members of all city religions would gather together with politicians in a Jewish community for Passover meal. So, by instruction of the President Ali Izetbegovic, Haggadah was produced from the safe and walls of the central bank to be used during Seder to prove that the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina's rich heritage and cultural diversity has not died during 3 years old siege of Sarajevo by Bosnian Serbs. At the moments like this, the Catholic, Jew, Muslim, and Orthodox unite under fire in a goodwill. We are all Sarajevans. And we can all join in saying, as is Passover tradition, let our people go. Hag Pesach Sameach.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your message. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Sanat Bernecker-Hart, the president of the Jewish Diplomatic Corps, who will introduce the remaining speakers and will moderate the main event of today's program, the story of the Sarajevo Haggadah.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I'd like to thank all of our friends at the Congress of Bosniaks of North America who helped with this program, and also to Consul General Reshit, and also the Ambassador Alkalai, and everyone else who's been very involved in getting this program to the fore. So thank you so much. And it's an absolute pleasure to be able to talk about something that is very important for Jewish identity, and that is stories. And in many ways, to be a Jew means living with and through stories, which are believed not merely to be part of an ancestral history, but also quite literally one's own. So for example, during Sukkot, Jews sleep outside and tell the story of wandering in the desert after the Exodus from Egypt. But we're about to enter into the holiday of Passover, which provides perhaps the best example of this. For when we recite the words in the Haggadah, which tell of the Jews' exodus from slavery in Egypt, we say, we were slaves in Egypt. We tell these stories and partake in the rituals relevant to this holiday in order to remember that these are part of our own experiences, not just ancient tales. The Sarajevo Haggadah represents layers upon layers of Jewish stories, and stories of all of the people that the Jews have come in contact with as this manuscript wove its way through time and space. It's framed by biblical illuminations and the story of the Exodus. It illuminates not only the cultural influences of its day and time through elements of Islamic and Christian illumination styles, whether topography and page layout inspired by beautiful Islamic illuminations, or Christian visual elements inspired by many of the richly illuminated Christian Bibles of its day. Yet the illustrations of biblical events are also representative of midrashic interests of the artists, as demonstrated in how biblical stories are depicted using Jewish rabbinic interpretations of the stories at hand. The influence of particular rabbinic scholars is also evident, such as Rabbi Moses ben Nachman, or Nachmanides, who wove Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah into his interpretations, some of which are alluded to in the illustrations, most notably the creation story at the beginning of the manuscript. Yet on a completely different level, the manuscript is the document of a journey and of coexistence, friendship, and respect. It documents the Jewish journey from the Middle Ages in Spain to Italy and onto the Austro-Hungarian Empire, where it found its city of protectors, Sarajevo. It was protected during war after war. This even inspired a best-selling novel that described the harrowing story of the Muslim librarian who risked death to save the manuscript from the Nazis. It has been lovingly preserved, protected, and celebrated. Yet it has not been only a precious manuscript. It's also been a document of life, of the Jewish home, and of the mutual respect between Jews and their friends and neighbors. In all of these places that the manuscript found itself, it was part of the memory of the ultimate journey out of Egypt. Yet it was also a guide to Jews and their guests during the Seders, as evidenced by even smudges of food and wine on its pages. It was even used at the communal Seder, as noted by Ambassador Al-Khalai in 1995. Without the respect and appreciation of its importance by the people of Sarajevo, this amazing Jewish manuscript would never have made it to this very moment. The word Haggadah is derived from the Hebrew word to tell. It's an honor to be able to tell the story of this manuscript as we approach the Passover holiday. Thank you. I now have the absolute pleasure to introduce the Chazan of the Jewish community of Sarajevo. His name is Igor Kojemyakin, and he's going to join us to discuss the Haggadah with us in more depth. And with that, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Birkenhart. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Thank you for your kind introduction and greetings to all of our distinguished participants and guests, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a really pleasure, as I said, to be with you today.
Wonderful. I was hoping that you could give us a little bit of an idea of how this Haggadah has been so important for the Jewish community and how it has symbolized these ideas of coexistence.
Well, the book, or Haggadah, my manuscript, actually, it is an object of pride, I would say, of all of, not just our Bosnian Jews, but also all of the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, since it really represents a cohesive factor, as you already mentioned. The illuminations in the Haggadah are already influenced by art of the other religious groups, that Jews were familiar with coexisting, not only in Sarajevo, but also before on the Iberian Peninsula, before the expulsion from Spain. It is really a special book, since it represents really for us, as I said, a big proud. We are, as a Bosnian Jews, very proud to have such a world-known manuscript in possession in our country. The story of it, however, is said that we as a Jewish community, back then a big Jewish community that represented a huge percentage of Sarajevo population, didn't manage to save and to keep the book within our community as a property, but unfortunately the Cohen family in the 19th century, late 19th century, became poor and they didn't have a choice, but an option, but to sell it. And the Jewish, they first offered it. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but first they offered it to the newly established Jewish educational and cultural society called La Benevolencia, which was established in 1892. Sorry, it was just 2 years before the Cohen family sold it to the National Museum. But the community or our society was just a new society, and we didn't have the money to buy the manuscript. However, it did stay in the community until the 1894, when it was sold to the National Museum. The Haggadah, it's very special because it is not like the all other Haggadah. All other Haggadah, they start with actually the story of Exodus. But this is a very special Haggadah because its illumination part starts with the creation of the universe, with the beginning, with the Sefer Bereshit, with the book of how it's called in English, Genesis.
Genesis, yes.
The book of Genesis. So it is also, as it is during the Passover, we say, and you should say to your children in that day. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, that we always tell the story about us, not about me or about the past generation. All of us had to see us as the generation that left Egypt. So this book also was used as a tool, educational tool for teaching children, not just the story of Exodus, but also the story of the Genesis. From the Genesis until the death of Moses and the leadership transferred to Yehoshua ben Nun is described basically in the first part before the text of Haggadah Halachmania starts. And it is what is funny about this book, if you ever had, if you ever had a facsimile in your hand, you can see that there are empty blank pages that are actually not empty and blank because children learn how to write on these pages. There are some exercises made, especially, I don't know if these are actually letters because they resemble letter bet, or if it is a number 2, but the children start to draw there. It is funny that this book was not, it was a family possession that was widely used in the family. And this is what is really interesting about the book itself. Mm-hmm. As you said, that it is influenced really not just by the illumination or the art, the art tools that are used in the books. Also, the format is pretty common to the Christian formats of illuminations of the Middle Ages. It is also interesting that it probably was a wedding gift to very, very rich families of Shushan and Elazar. This is the assumptions. So it is because it has a lot of artistic golden and copper leaf techniques within it, meaning that the people that ordered the book had to be very rich, and it ended up with the Cohen family that was struggling to survive and had to sell the book. But nevertheless, the book is with us. The book is, which we are very happy now, exhibited in the museum, and there is a possibility to see it, which was museum unfortunately was closed for years. And this was a very sad moment that all of the travelers and the visitors that are coming to Sarajevo and the Jewish community were asking, how can we see the Haggadah? And we say, no, the museum is closed. So for them, it was unbelievable to have a piece of art in a rank of Mona Lisa and not to be able to see it when you enter the Louvre. So we are now happy that it is possible to see this great book. What is also very special about the book, that it has also piyutim, or the religious songs after the Haggadah ends, written by the most famous, I would say, writers or Hebrew poets from the, it was a golden era really of Hebrew literature between 10th and 13th century. And the greatest name of Rihal, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, or Shlomo Ibn Gevirol, Rashbag, the poems that they composed are essential part of this manuscript. else to say, but well, this is, I'm very excited to be, so please, if you can continue with some questions, this will help.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned before that this was a teaching document as well. I mean, the whole Seder is a teaching moment as well. So there's so much involved with this document in teaching. How has this beautiful illuminated manuscript served to teach all of those people you mentioned coming to see it? What does this project to the visitors, to the people of Sarajevo, to the world, really, as a teaching document in that sense?
I think that the biggest significance of it is that to teach us about our coexistence. Because we can see that this book survived all of the troubles of the Jewish people, not just the World War II and the last war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It also survived after Second World War attempt to be stolen in the 50s, something like that. But it also was prevented by the Ministry of Internal Affairs of back then. So it really shows us our coexistence, that this book survived, and it also represents an element of pride in all citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it is considered, like, if you ask any Bosnian about Sarajevo Haggadah, they are pretty familiar and they are proud that it is a heritage of our country. So this is also shows us, and what is interesting also, that the figures or the human represented in the illuminations are also showing us the coexistence in medieval Spain, because we can see that the people are dressed. I mean, the stories are biblical, but the appearance of the people in the stories are of the present moment. So it also then served as an educational tool. And for us, we are proud that it really serves as an educational tool for our generations of citizens that are growing up in our country and maybe are not familiar. Now, in the special room built for exhibition of the Haggadah, there are also some other manuscripts of other religious and ethnic groups, which are also sharing the stories of coexistence. So all of the exhibition is basically representing an educational tool of story of coexistence. The more common stories are the stories of savings of Haggadah. They might be fictional, they might be true. Probably the truth is in between. There are some fictions around the stories, but the fact is that they were saved by the tremendous help and efforts by the non-Jewish people who in a certain way risked their life and life of their families. And I mean, when we talked about previously, already mentioned Dervish Korkut, who was also declared the righteous among the nations by Yad Vashem, not just for saving this book, but showing that he really was a Jewish-friendly person, and that he risked his life to try to save Mira Papa. And unfortunately, Mira Papa was not able to testify in a court because he was brought to court by the communist government for cooperation with the Nazis, which was not true. But Mira Papa was not allowed to speak up and to stand in his protection. And this is something that we are now trying to change, and to give the honor that the family deserves. Mm-hmm. And it is another interesting story, not maybe connected to Haggadah, that the other righteous among the nation, the first woman, Muslim woman, called Zaineba Hardaga. Zaineba was the first woman who was declared. And when she was asked, when she left Sarajevo in 1993 with the convoy of the Jewish community and was brought as not as a refugee, but she received all the citizen rights in Israel. She was asked by Ambassador Milton Wolff, who was president of JDC, and he welcomed her on her way, and he asked her, "So can you tell me about how did you save Jews?" And what was her answer was, "I didn't save Jews, I saved my neighbors." So this is basically the story of coexistence in Sarajevo. We really are trying to live among each other and to interfere on a daily basis and to have a common life, not just a tolerance or something like that. For me, tolerance is a very bad word. It means if you have to tolerate someone, you might not like him, but if you will get to meet someone, then there is a more chance that you will like him.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think that what's fascinating about the images, just all the illuminations, is that it visually shows that coexistence as well. I mean, it visually shows all of these different influences coming into the drawings and being put to the page by the artist or artists, depending on what you believe about it, and shows how we as people are always living, with others, and these influences are coming together, and they make us all richer. They make us so much more vibrant in many ways.
As you said, it also passes this moment that it shows each and every person equal, because we have there also different skin colors of protagonists of the stories, and it is really something that it is a treasure to the world as a whole.
Absolutely. And I also like the different levels that it shows of trying to represent different modes of thought. I mean, you have some idea, you can go very deep into interpreting many of these images. Some allude to even Kabbalistic notions and ideas, which of course were popular, in Spain at that time. Yeah. And so, but that is sort of radical in a way. If you think about it, this text showed.
It is for sure. I was thinking about it, how radical that was in that times of a period, but it really was a period of radical moves that were maybe not expected, but it was a really golden age of the humanity in Iberian Peninsula, I would say, not just for Jews, for Muslims, and for Christians. It was a period really of golden age. And we can see also in the development of any other disciplines, like medicine, for example, that they broke the stereotypes and taboos that were for hundreds of years of position of organs within the human body, and the schools of, or madrasas, or batei midrash of the medieval Spain, really, they didn't afraid of investigating and learning new things, and this is something also that the book represents as a ideal that humans should always prevail for a knowledge. This is my also notion of how I see these things developed in the Middle Ages.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that unlike many of the other Haggadahs, although not many have lasted, from this period, this is really the, most incredible example from that time period. I mean, we know of other Haggadot that have been illuminated, but this really is one of the most amazing examples. But I think what's also incredible is how you mentioned that the beginning of it isn't just starting with the Exodus. It gives you so much more than that. It really starts with the whole story of creation, and then moves to, passing down, the importance of teaching, to your children.
Yes, of course, it is actual now, even when we see that around the globe, there are people who are tending to believe that the earth is flat. We can see that back then in the 14th century, the illuminators were aware of the geometrical shape of the planet Earth. And what is very, very funny, that it passed also and Roman Latin, probably Roman Latin Inquisition in 1609, because it states that the Roman Inquisitor checked the book and it allows it for use. So it is funny that because it was 1609, we know that people were burnt on fire a couple of hundred years after that for having this claim that the earth is actually a globe.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think also just the nature of the journey, how this is a document that, and beautiful document that has traveled. You know, it's had its own journeys throughout, and such a typical journey. You know, it looks like my 23andMe. You know, it's in like Spain, it goes to Italy, and then Austria-Hungary.
It is, but it has been for generations. So generations of Jews based back in Italy, probably in Venice, who were trading with Sarajevo, with Ragusa, with Dubrovnik, or with other Jewish centers, Thessaloniki in Greece. So they were settled in Italy, basically. And also in Italy, it used to be not just a religious book or a book of custom, but it used to be also educational. I want to believe that it used to be an educational tool also back then in Italy, because we know that almost 2 centuries it spent in Italy until it came to Sarajevo with correct family.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's had journeys beyond itself too. So not just the incredible stories of the individuals that saved it, which in themselves are amazing stories and part of this Haggadah, but you also have the other art that it inspired. And it has inspired other, you know, forms of art, whether it's the book that I mentioned, that was a best-selling novel by Geraldine Brooks. Yeah, or other artists as well.
It inspired a lot of artists. Still, it inspires. My wife is dealing with Hebrew calligraphy, especially in Rashi script, but she is inspired by the Sarajevo Haggadah a lot, although the script is a squared Hebrew script. It's not Rashi, but there are some parts, as you know, as maybe you know, but other people might not know, that to distinguish between the religious text and the explanatory explanations by the rabbis and Chachamim, we use a special script to distinguish between the holy text and the explanation. So this is called Rashi script. It is not invented by Rashi or anything like that, but because most of the commentaries were written by Rashi, and it is an acronym of Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, a Provençal rabbi, also of Middle Ages. So this is a special script that Sephardic people use not just for religious purpose, but also to write the secular things, such as our language of Sephardic people. The Judeo-Espanol is actually originally written in this script.
You bring up an interesting point with regard to, you know, how this Haggadah has found its home in Sarajevo. It seems almost perfect in that Sarajevo has always been a place with so many different people and religions and languages. And you spoke about Ladino, and also you have Yiddish. Both were spoken in Sarajevo, and just this really multicultural richness that you also see reflected in this Haggadah. Could you speak a little bit more about, you know, Sarajevo as a center for just vibrant multicultural existence and the Jews' part in that?
Yes, actually, as Ambassador Alkali said, that we could represent the salt of the elements of bread. Jews did contribute, but there were also many other ethnic groups that used also until the World War II. There are many languages that were spoken on the streets of Sarajevo, including Italian, German, Czech. I don't know. There are many Bulgarian, because we had also people that dealt with agriculture that were Bulgarians, and there are many. So this melting point of culture, I mean, the Sarajevo has this special, I don't know how to say, the speciality about it, that it did allow the other cultures not just to be tolerated or express themselves in a private sphere, but they were allowed to go out in a public sphere. And that's why the mixture of languages, and Jews were used to speak, Sephardic Jews in Sarajevo until the World War II used to speak Judeo-Espanol or Ladino as their mother tongue. And you could hear it clearly on the streets of Sarajevo, as well as not Latin, but Italian, who was spoken by the Roman Catholic minority that lived in the city. Mm-hmm. It is interesting also that because the Orthodox Church during the late Ottoman period was ruled by the archbishops that were coming from Fanar, from Istanbul, and that their mother tongue was Greek. So you could also hear Greek spoken among the streets of Sarajevo, and it really allowed people to be more tolerant, or to have more acceptance of other things, not to see them as something that is threatening to their own identity, but something that can be and can serve as a cohesive factor, or to expand them, to enrich them as persons. And this is, I think, that how we see things also today. The fact that Jews did live in a closed neighborhood, but it was not closed by the gates. It was closed by the customs and by the mitzvot that we are had to oblige. That's why we somehow took ourselves as a special community, but it didn't prevent it from us to interfere on daily basis with other, and also the other ethnic groups behaved in the same way, and this created this atmosphere of the cosmopolitan city of Sarajevo. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, from the mid-90s, the demographic structure of Sarajevo changed a lot. Mm-hmm. It might, in a demographical sense, it is not so multi-ethnic as it used to be, but in a sense of the culture and of the Sarajevans perceiving themselves, it is very important that they still see themselves and their city as a cosmopolitan, open city to the others and difference.
Right. I mean, and when we speak of today, you and your family are a wonderful example of, how this story is going to move forward in time. I think about how, the recently passed away Rabbi Jonathan Sachs talks about how Jews are always in the middle of the story. And it's a story that's going to end in the future. But of course, when you get to that future, it's still the middle of the story. And so it's continuing on and on. And, how do you see, you're going to be celebrating Passover soon with your family in Sarajevo and weaving in this history of this amazing illuminated manuscript. And I feel that now there's a bit of a revival of Jewish life happening in Sarajevo. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yes, of course. I'm very happy to say that we have, although we are small in numbers, we are in a quality community. I would say that an inclusive community that it's trying to include all of the ages of our members, and it has been extremely challenging in this last year and more than a year already, with the rise of the pandemic and even the last. And we are in Sarajevo used to celebrate Seder in the community, which is something that stayed from the socialist time. Since Pesach was a holiday of liberation, it was widely accepted also by the socialist establishment, and it was publicly celebrated within the community. And all the community would gather within the community, and then we will have together Seder. And it has to be changed last year. So we have recorded the prayers, and we had an online Seder for the first time. I mean, it was not really online, it was streamed. Mm-hmm. But me and my family, we tried actually to help the other members of the community to have Seder in their own homes and to have it as Jews are used to have it all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, this year it will probably be the online, the same as the last year. But we will try now to include to have it on Zoom or something like that, so people can also step in and take part in the ceremony, especially when the children has to ask questions
mm-hmm.
about why this night is different than any other night.
Absolutely.
We are also trying to organize, to organize or to help school children with their process of learning, because it is really also extremely challenging to learn in front of the computers. So we tried to help them to have a smaller group, but to work in person with respecting all of the epidemiological measures.
Mm-hmm.
It is challenging, but we believe that this all will soon be behind us, and we will continue with the strength that we were started. And we want to also bring the new generations that will ensure that their Jewish identity is accepted and that it's visible, and that they're not afraid, basically, of being Jewish. And the new generation is not afraid of being Jewish and being publicly Jewish. And it is something that it's very, very, I'm very happy to see that it's going on, because without Jewish identity, there is no Jewish community. And
right.
There is really a lot of people that are saying that our community is to disappear in next generation or next 2 generations. And I'm certainly I'm not sharing this view of my own community and myself, and also the other people involved. And there's a lot of young people involved in the community who will give their best to have a flourishing, small but vibrant Jewish community that will be also part of the wider Bosnian society.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And I look forward to visiting you at that in your community, and maybe for Passover when in the future.
God will, we are invited. All of the citizens are invited. This is very special. Whoever came to Sarajevo could see that. I think that's the only synagogue in Europe that doesn't have a security guard on its doors. And I think that the fact that we are open to our fellow citizens, this contributes to our security also as well.
Absolutely. You know, one thing that I think is really important about Pesach and about the Haggadah for this particular year and time, you know, I feel as if the entire world has been in exile, you know, in a different way, you know, and what do you see as sort of lessons of hope that we can have from the Haggadah and from the Passover holiday that are for everyone?
Well, basically the freedom. I'm looking forward to freedom that will come. Now we are now in a period that we have passed the Red Sea. We are now in the wilderness. We'll wander for a while, but I think that the immunization process will at the end bring us so much wanted liberation that we will be finally free to move to the promised land, whatever we think the promised land is.
That's wonderful. I look forward to that. And with that, thank you so much, Igor Kojimiakin, for joining us in this conversation. I appreciate you filling in last minute, and I look forward to hearing you sing at the synagogue at some point.
Thank you, Dr. Beckner, to you and to all of the participants.
Wonderful. Well, it is now my pleasure to introduce Ernest Herzog for some closing remarks. Mr. Herzog has served as the Security and Crisis Management Consultant for the regions of Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union for the World Jewish Congress, and has recently taken on the role of Executive Director of Operations at the World Jewish Congress this past year. So thank you, Mr. Herzog, for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Sonat. It's my great honor and privilege to give closing remarks at an event addressing such an interesting and important subject. First of all, in the name of the World Jewish Congress, I would like to thank the Congress of Bosniaks of North America for partnering with us on this project, and also to all participants who spoke today for sharing their very interesting insights on the Sarajevo Haggadah. We are especially sad that the president of the Jewish Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Ambassador Jakub Finci, could not be with us today. We do, however, wish him full and speedy recovery. Our special thanks go to Mr. Igor Kozhemyakin, the Chazan of the Sarajevo Synagogue, who filled Mr. Finci's place and spoke about Sarajevo Haggadah and shared these interesting stories connected to the book. Dear friends, Winston Churchill once wrote, "When you're going through hell, keep on going. Never, never, never give up." The Sarajevo Haggadah, since it was created in Spain and during its long life, has faced many opportunities to be destroyed. In this respect, its destiny reminds me of the destiny of the Jewish people. Against all odds, both the Sarajevo Haggadah and the Jewish people are still here today, in the 21st century, ready to tell the story to all those who are ready to listen, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, or where they come from. To tell the story of life, to tell the story of survival, and the story of never giving up hope, even when everything seems to be in vain. It was never giving up hope that guided citizens of Sarajevo to light during the dark years of the World War I, the war that, out of all places, started in Sarajevo after the assassination that took place in 1914. It was never giving up hope that helped citizens of Sarajevo go through the tragic years of the Second World War, when the city became a part of the infamous independent state of Croatia, a time during which Sarajevo citizens were murdered and taken away, never to come back, only because of their religion and ethnicity. And 50 years later, it was never giving up hope that led citizens of Sarajevo towards the survival of the horrible siege of the city during the 90s, the longest siege of a capital city in the modern warfare. The Sarajevo Haggadah did not only survive all these years together with the Jewish people, but it also survived together with its fellow citizens, both symbolically and physically. Now, people say that certain things happen for a reason. I don't need too much time to look for a reason as to why this Haggadah, this symbol of hope and survival, somehow found its home in a city like Sarajevo. It's quite obvious to me. They belong together for so many reasons. Dear friends, we live in times of unprecedented challenges and uncertainty, from deadly epidemics to natural disasters, from populism in politics that is gaining ground to growing extremism on both the right and the left spheres of the political spectrum, and from expanding rifts in our society to numerous hotspots around the world with smoldering flames of yet another war. Let's take upon ourselves a duty to spread the message of Haggadah, the message of never giving up hope with those who need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herzog, for those wonderful closing remarks. I would like to thank everybody for joining us for this event and learning about the Sarajevo Haggadah. I'd like to thank Ambassador Alcalay, Consul General Reshet. I'd also like to thank everyone at the Congress of Bosniaks of North America, Eldin Kajevich, and also, of course, the Chazan of the Jewish community of Sarajevo, Igor Kojoya-Miakin, who joined us in such short notice to talk about all of the wonderful things related to this beautiful illuminated manuscript. And I love the message of hope that is in this Haggadah and the message of hope we all need for our times. May we all get through everything in health and in good cheer and with friends. Thank you.